Morning. Today's daf is daf Ayin Dalad. The last subject we've been learning about is that if we're talking about animals that got mixed up, and one of the animals are disqualified from being brought on the mizbeach together with a bunch of kabbanas, and how you deal with it. And we introduced the idea of the kavua, that if all the animals are in one place, it doesn't matter that the non-kosher or the disqualified animal is only one. In contrast to 10,000. It doesn't become bottle only if it was separated by itself. So now we're going to continue learning some other dinim about this as well. Then Rob introduced us the idea also that there's an argument whether an animal while it's alive is nitche, when once it's been rejected from being a carbon, is it rejected forever or not really so. And so now we are up to the Gemara here, about 4 lines on the top of the page of Ayin Dalad Amid Aleph. And those who learn Smicha probably remember it from Simon Kuf Yud, because Simon Kuf Yud brings this whole Gemara. Says the Gemara here, 4 lines on top of the page. Amar Rab Nachman. Rab Nachman comes along and says in the name of Rabba Baravua. Amar Rab in the name of Rab. Habas shal avodas kachavim. Now remember, when it comes to avodah zara, we are more strict than general averas, because the Torah says, you shouldn't have, and even a mashu is also, you shouldn't have anything to do with anything, accessories even of avodah zara, nothing. So a ring of avodah zara, and a ring is a davar chashuv, is something significant, and we learned already a couple of days ago that something which you sell individually, a davar shebeminyan, is never bottled because it is very significant. And the whole idea of bittul is that it gets nullified, gets lost because it's not significant. So Amarav, tabash shel avodah chavim, you have a ring of avodah zara, shenis arva b'meya tabayis. You have 100 other rings that were not avodah zara. And this ring got mixed up with avodah zara. What exactly was the ring of avodah zara? Some say you worshipped it, for whatever reason. Some say you used it to adorn the avodah zara. So it became an accessory to avodah zara. Now what happened was it got mixed up with 100. It's not bottle. It's not bottle because it's a chashva thing. What happens v'nofla aches mehem liyam hagadol? Now remember, most Rishonim hold that this idea that it's not bottle because it's chashuv is only midrabanan. I mean, from the Torah, in all instances, had betray bottle. If you have a majority, it is bottle. The Rabbanan were machmir by davar shebeminyan. All of the laws that we learned that is so significant is not bottle. It's only midrabanan. So therefore, if one of them fell on its own, you didn't deliberately throw it in or throw it away. One of them fell in the Yam HaMelech on its own. We'll attribute that the one that fell in the Yam HaMelech is probably the one that's usher. It's probably the Avodah Zarah ring, and the rest of the rings become mutter. They all become permitted. Why? We say, that ring that fell into the Yam HaMelech, Hainu the Isura, was probably the Isur. And Taisha points out over here, only if it fell in. But if you tossed it in, then we don't say, oh, the one that you threw away probably is Avodah Zarah, use those rings. There's no such eitzah. Then Taisa has an opinion, big Machalik Rishonim. What happens if you tossed it in, but you weren't aware that it was Avodah Zarah at the time, and you found it later? Or you tossed it in b'shagig. You did a mistake. You didn't know, whatever. You threw one away. You got so nervous. So Taisa says that even if you did it b'shagig, we're going to penalize you, and we'll say, no, we're not going to permit the rest, because next time you do it deliberately. Other Rishonim hold, if you did it b'shagig, we're not going to penalize you. Also Yam HaMelech, because what happens? You just throw it away. It's not good enough. It has to be Yam HaMelech, which means it disappears. Nobody goes in, nobody travels there, and therefore it disappears according to Taisus. So I think more further. So I have a question. In our Mishnah, we just learned, this is how it relates back to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said that if you have one disqualified animal, for whatever reason, it was a Sharnisko, or it was a Nirba, one disqualified animal from his bag, it got mixed up with all these 10,000 kosher animals or kabbanas, whatever it is. I feel achas beribu. The din is yemusa kula. They all have to die. You can't do anything with. Let's say the sharniskul. Now we have to assume that over time another animal died. You just said that if one ring fell into the Yam HaMelech, we'll assume, you know what? That's the one that was us. No. So when one animal dies, say, that's probably the one that was treif, the one that was not qualified to be in the mizbech, and move on and use the rest. What's the difference? Let's say the Misasura maze. Let's say the one that died, the Isura maze, the one that died also has died. Rav says Rav, he said, because Rav holds like Rabbi Lezer. What's the Meiser Rabbi? We looked at the top of the page yesterday. If you have an oiler that's a balmum, an oiler that's disqualified, you got mixed up with a bunch of other oilers, pieces. You got mixed up with a bunch of oilers. So Rabbi Lezer said, if you already brought up one head on the Mizbeach, then you know what? Then we'll assume that that was the disqualified oiler. You can use the rest. So Rab is following that view. It's not Rabbi Lezer, and if you brought one head, everything else permitted. Says the Gemara, it's not so simple. Rabbi Loza says, that's Rabbi Loza, Rabbi Yechon's Talmud. Lo yihite Rabbi Lezer el shnayim shnayim. You know what Rabbi Lezer said that the rest of the parts of the oilers are permitted, the rest of the heads are permitted? If you put two on the mizbeach at a time. And what's the logic of that? Because remember, only one head was disqualified. So if you put two on the mizbeach, we know for 31 is kosher, and then we have a drag along, the other one is kosher. But you cannot do one at a time because each one is still a suffix. And you tell me a ma'aser that once one ring fell in the Yam HaMelech, he can use all other rings lechatchila. Avalechad loy. Amalei answered back, you're right. And no, I tartika amina. Excuse me. Just like in the case of the head, you can do two at a time. I hold that when you say you can use the rest of the rings is only if you sell two rings at a time. That's how Rashi and Moshe Shai learn. The Rambam learns differently. He learns, when does Rabbi Lezer say that on the Mizbeach, if you put a head, it is, we'll say it's disqualified? Only if you put two on the Mizbeach in the first place. If you put two, so at least one of them was definitely kosher, so he didn't do anything wrong. But if you only put one on the Mizbeach, then we're not going to attribute, say, to the apostle because they need something wrong. We don't want that to happen either. So the same thing with the rings. When do we say that the rings, this is where you learn kufyud in the shach. When do we say that the rings are mutter if two rings fell into the Yam HaMelech? Not like Rashi that learns that is talking about future sales. Well, you have to have two, so one is definitely kosher. You have to have two so that then we have a chance to say that one of them maybe is possible, one of them is kosher. But if you only have one, why would you attribute it to the possible one? Anyway, Rav said another din. Now, we have a concept called Svek Sveika. There's something in the Svek Sveika. What's the logic of Svek Sveika? There's a big machlekes in the Shainim Achreim. What the logic of Svek Sveika is? Why, if a suffix is Aser Mahatorah, in other words, if you're not sure if this is permitted or not permitted, we're always machmir. But if you have a double suffix, we'll say that it's permitted. Why should it be permitted? So the Rivash has a beautiful thing. The Rivash in the Shal Tshuva says there are three. What we know is in the Torah there are three levels. Aser on one extreme, the other end of the spectrum is mutter, and then in between you have a suffix. There's no other level. So if you have a suffix, it takes it down from a vadai, definite aser, to the middle strata. But if you have a suffix in that one, there's nowhere else to go, but you got to go to one level lower, and the level lower is mutter. The Rashba, in his Tshuva Kufalav, I think it is, he says over there that that Svek Sveika is metam roiv. That Svek Sveika is like a roiv. Because look, a suffix is 50-50. Machzas chorim, that's the example I give. Machzas chorim, machzas kev. A woman, 50% a boy, 50%. We're talking about a b'chor. If an animal gave birth and then it got lost, what happened? Was there, and that miscarried, what was it? So you say 50 was, 50% here, 50% here, 50. Then if you have a suffix in the 50, let's say, of a zach, you have some kind of a suffix there, then it reduces the next suffix takes it down from 50 to 40 to 30. So it's like a roiv. But then he adds, that opens a Pandora's box. What's this Yosem Aroiv? Either it's a Roiv or it's a Yosem. What's Yosem Aroiv? Which means that Azra is saying maybe there's another whole reason why Svek Sveika is mutter. Maybe he's alluding to the Rivash. No, either you Roiv. What do you mean Yosem Aroiv? No, but there's more reason to be matter Svek Sveika than to be matter Aroiv. Why? If it's Matam Roiv. So it must be another reason that the Rashba has in mind. So there's a machlekes there, Nachrein, what exactly the Rashba is saying. Okay, so let's continue. Why am I bringing this up? Because that's what we're going to talk about. So one ring that makes up the 100 rings. So now every ring you pick up, there's one suffix. What is it? And then the 100 rings got split. 40 ended up in one place, and 60 rings ended up in another place. Now, if one of the 40, one of the group of 40 left of the 40, why not? Because we're going to say it's a sex faker. First of all, who said Bechlal in this 40 is this puzzle ring? Maybe it's in the 60, and probably it's in the 60 because that's the majority. And even if the puzzle, the Avodah Zarah ring ended up in the 40, who said that the ring that you have right now that left them in that group is the one that's us? So it's a sex faker. Because mutter. But Achas Meshishim said, if one of the 60 fell out, the larger pile, it's us. So you might understand. You have the same sex faker there. First of all, who said, it's in the 60, maybe it's in the 40? And even if it's in the 60, who said the ring that came out is yours? I mean, we say and none of that. Right before we get to the sex faker, the reason why we say that if a fake came out of the 40 is permitted is because, in all probability, where's the puzzle ring in the 60? Well, if you have one ring that came out of the 60, then you'll use the same logic. It's only one. Where is the Isa? Probably with the remaining 59.
Says call Polish, Polish, and we know majority, 99.
You're right. So Rashi says a good point. So does Machlei Shem know that? But Rashi says because Avodah Zarah was stricter. Even though other places might say it, but this is Avodah Zarah. Avodah Zarah was stricter. Others say it's talking about a case befonein. You remember we said before that if it leaves in front of you, if kol deparish, if you saw it happening, we don't say kol deparish. The only time we say kol deparish is you found it on the street, the piece of meat. Same thing. Ella, im pirshu. This is what happened. In pirshu arboim kulun mokam echad. All 40 left in one go. Ain't oises. In other words, the entire two groups, a group of 40 rings, a group of 60 rings. The entire 40 rings fell into another batch of rings. Second mixture. Ain't oises. They don't answer the second mixture. It's a sex faker. But 60 fell into another place. Since we assume the ring is in that 60, so because it falls in the rive, it's going to ask it because the entire 60 is there. Otherwise, but the 40 is mutter. Why could the sex faker know that? So the Gemara, So why? So it's like one suffix. If the entire lot of 60, there's one suffix, did it fall in there, but it's a right there. If the entire lot of 60 fell into another pile, still only one suffix. Mashenki, if the lot of 40 fell into one pile, it's like a sex cycle. Who said the ring is there? And even if it's, because we follow the right. So we're not going so much into sex cycle right now. We're saying more of that to do with right. However, Amrita, the Shmuel, he said, no. I don't believe that you can be makel even in the group of pile of 40. Okay, it's a suffix, a sex faker. I don't believe the concept of sex faker applies by Avodah Zarah because it's so strict. Leave aside Avodah Chavim. Don't be lenient by there. Why? Sex faker asura. There's no such thing as sex faker is mutter. Now, interesting. There's a difference when something is mutter because of sex faker or suffix. Not according to B'Shas, according to Ramah. By a roy, we say, chad betray bottle. We have 3 pieces of meat, 1 piece of treif. All 3 are mutter. And you can eat them all. The Ramah says when it comes to Sveika, I think Shach explains it. When it comes to Sveika, it's the het is not as strong as Reiv, and therefore we don't. According to Ramah says, we don't want one person using them all, because then definitely somewhere there is the suffix. Even though we're saying Sveika it's mutter, but the Isa is still there somewhere. So if you can use it all, it has to be Shnei B'nei Adam. And then it goes a step further. That even if 2 people, they shouldn't all use it at the same time. No, that I'm not saying that sex fake is not like the Rajba says that's like Roy, because then whatever didn't
3 eggs together to be Mavatl in case one of them.
That's not sex fake, that's Roy.
That's Roy.
Roy, we say.
So then you can't have one person eat 3 eggs. Is that we?
No. Talking about where you're using the concept. This is sex fake. First of all, who said the ring fell to the 40? Yeah, but now we're saying this. This whole Machlek Shmuel Rab is sex fake. First of all, who said the ring's in the 40? And then, if when the 40 found somewhere else, and then you take one, who said that's the one you took, is the one that is from that thing. So sex like is mutter. That's what the Rav said. So, but Mashenki in the 60, a lot of 60, it's not really a sex fake because it's a rive there, is probably there. So then Shmuel argues, no sex fake by Avodah Zarah. Says that where we rely on the heter by meat, whatever, sex fake, as opposed to rive. We don't want 2 people having it. We don't want it even, at the same time. We don't want one person to have it all. In other words, it's not sex. According to Ramah's explaining, in the Ramah, it's not that sex fake is tam rave. It's not rave. It's something else. Okay. Says the further. Well, so he said no sex fake. May I ask a question about Bryce? It's clearly something about his other is forbidden. Oh, but sex fake muteris. So it's clearly in the Bryce that sex fake by avodah muter. For example, Kate said, if you have a cup of avodah fell into a full treasure full of cups, cool and suddenly they will become asur. Suffix, right? Each cup. Maybe this is the avodah. Oh, but Peter's echen men if one of them ended up with another fell out and came to 10,000. And the medieval from that 10,000, one of them fell out and went to another 10,000. Mutari, it is mutar. Now the obvious question is, why do you have to have? It's really three sveikas, not two sveikas, isn't it? Because first of all, the cup fell into a trash full of cups. That's really suffix number one. Each cup, which one is it? And then it fell into 10,000. That's suffix number two. Why do you have to then have from the 10,000 to go another 10,000? That's suffix number three. So there are some shame you need, but the Tosfos explains there, very interesting. He says there's a difference between the first lot of 10,000 and the second lot of 10,000. Why? He says in the first lot of 10,000, you can't use all 10,000 because the Isa is probably there. Even though, no, this is like the Ramah, but still there's an Isa there. If it falls into another 10,000, then you can definitely use the entire 10,000 cups of wine. So that's what Tosfos says. And first, why we add this case, because it has an afkaminal halacha. Studying further, you're right. It's a machlekes tanaim whether there's sveka or not. The Tanya Rabbi says we learned a few days ago that the pomegranates of this place called Badna are so significant because they sold individually. Ketzad, for example, Nofel Echem and the one that fell into 10,000, and from 10,000 to 10,000, Asuri, and there also. We're talking about it here, Klai Kedem, we're talking about it here, Orlo, that's the east over there. And Abshimon ben Yehuda said, Mishun Abshimon, Liribui Asurin, he said the first, the first day holds no sex fake, it's still asur. And if Shimi Yehuda says that it's the first group, it fell in, you're right, it's only one suffix. If it fell out of from the 10,000 to 3, so now there's a majority of 3. And the Gemara will explain later why you need 3, you need a majority 2. Then from the 3 to another place, mutter, they are mutter. They're all mutter. Not only the third group, but even the second group is mutter because sex fake is mutter. So the Gemara said, I don't understand. They're not talking about avodah zarah. They're talking about bechlal in algemein. Is there such a concept of sex fake mutter or not? Rabbi Yehuda says no, and Shimon ben Yehuda says yes. Says Shmuel, no, come on. Who does he hold like? If he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, then why only avodah zarah? Then I feel b'shara suri masa. There's no sex fake ever. And he holds like Shimon. If Shimon makes no distinction between avodah zarah and the rest, then I feel about avodah zarah namishari. He holds is always sex fake, even though they don't mention avodah zarah. They don't talk about it as if there's no difference. Says the Gemara, if you're going to tell me that Shaina Leila Rab Shimon, maybe Rab Shimon holds there's a difference between avodah zarah and the Shara Surim. Rab Shimon says that when he says over here that there's no that sex fake is mutter, he's talking about other Surim, not avodah zarah. So no kasha shmul. El Horatanya, we look at another brayso we said before. Safik avodah chav aser, but sex fake is mutter. The price we learned before that a sex fake is mutter. Mani, who is that? That loy Rabbi Yehuda, loy Rabbi Shimon. That this price before that says that everywhere else sex fake is mutter, but only everywhere sex fake is mutter, including avodah zarah. If you're going to tell me that Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, the one who holds sex fake is mutter, holds by avodah zarah sex fake is asur, and that's Shmuel. So who's the author of the brayso before we learned that even by avodah zarah sex fake is mutter? Mani loy Rabbi Yehuda, loy Rabbi Shimon. It's a third opinion, and we don't like to make three opinions. Loy Rabbi Shimon. No. You're right. Rabbi Shimon holds is never that there's no also sex fake is always mutter Shimon Yehuda. But Shmuel, so I will look at Rabbi Yehuda b'chada. He agrees Rabbi Yehuda that there's no sex fake about avodah zarah. But he agrees with Rabbi Shimon that there is sex fake everywhere else. Let's understand. He said over here, the second suffix is that it went from 10,000 to 3, and then then from the 3 it went somewhere else. Mutter. Yeah, what do you need? But first of all, why do you need 3? No, when we say he goes, you don't need the third step, as Rashi says, even the second step is mutter. So why mention it all 3? And why mention 3 at all? So setting money here. What do you want? Right? So he went from where's the here? A few Yehuda says he went to 10,000. No, it went to 2. It fell into 10,000. This Imoni Bodon fell into 10,000, and then from the 10,000 it fell into 3. So that's 2 sveikas. It fell. We're talking about not the cups of wine. We're talking about here the Imoni Bodon, which is the Orla Klaiket. So it fell into 10,000, and then one of the 10,000 fell into a group of 3. The question is why you need 3 mutter? all you need is two, because the roiv is two. So if one of the pomegranates fell into two good pomegranates, it's a second suffix, second mutter. Why do you say it has to fall into three? So the ikuruba, because there's a majority, so it's a suffix. I'm not getting ikuruba. The Moshe is right. My gimel liktoni tarti v'hu. We don't mean it fell into three. It meant total now is three. Or another answer about Shmuel. Savalo, he holds like Rabbi Lezer. He holds like Rabbi Lezer. Which Rabbi Lezer? No, it's Shmuel that says that a svek sveika by avodah zarah is always forbidden. Holds like Rabbi Lezer. Not Rabbi Lezer over here, but Rabbi Lezer says that if you took wood and from avodah zarah and you heated up an oven with it, if it's a brand new oven, you just made the oven from avodah zarah. You have to destroy the oven. If it's an old one, you just have to make sure it cools down, so you don't have any benefit from the wood. You know, the old one, the wood doesn't contribute to the oven itself. It's only whatever you're baking b'shas ma'aseh. So wait till the oven cools down, so you have no benefit from the avodah zarah at all. Now, what happens? You bake bread while the wood from the avodah zarah is on fire, and that's what's causing it to bake. So the din is the bread is asa b'hana. What happens? Rabbi Lezer says this bread got mixed up in a pile of other breads, and then the other breads got mixed up in a pile of other breads, good breads. So now you have a svek sveika of avodah zarah because you had a hana from avodah zarah wood. Says Rabbi Lezer that it's awesome. He says throw a loaf of bread into the yam melech. So in other words, even though it's a svek sveika, yeah, but even though it's a svek sveika, he says also Shmuel I pass like Rabbi Lezer. Taking it further, another thing, a similar idea. You talked before about a ring. I'll talk about a chavis, a barrel. We said one of those six things that a chashiv is like a sealed barrel. It's chashiv. So there's arba b'mei got mixed. So what happened? You have one barrel of truma, which obviously only a kohen can have, got mixed up with 100 proper barrels, and the nafla achas memei hamelech. If one of the barrels fell into yam melech, hutru kulam. We're going to say that the rest of the barrels are permitted because probably we're going to assume that the one that fell in the water is the one from truma.
Right there between. But if it fell into the Yam Melech, that's okay. But you can't still take it in front.
You're not allowed to because we're goyzer. No, how do you know that's the one that's usher? And then even though the whole thing is the rabbanon, no, we don't. So that since the whole Isa is the rabbanon anyway, so we're going to be makel and say, oh, let's assume that that's what it is and be matzah. But if you go ahead and do it deliberately, then why should we be makel? The fact that there's a suffix here, one of them is truma. Midrabanan, it's a suffix that makes it awesome.
Reward that people are going to go and
you'll use all 100. Yeah. You're going to use the entire 100. And if you use the entire 100, if without throwing one away, definitely one of them is truma. That's the problem.
And probably you got to assume that the barrel's not going to float in the Dead Sea, or someone could come and take it out. Because
the reason why we are
Dead Sea. What is it?
Actually, everybody floats in the Dead Sea. The reason why they say Dead Sea, according to we have a traces in other places, is because the Yamach, nobody travels there. Nobody, we're not worried that a regular river doesn't work.
The Dead Sea, everything
decomposes. Yeah. But Traces says there.
Our Gemara says Yamagabi.
This one here, yeah. But when it says it says Yamamelech.
There's still a case of Truma.
Yeah. But in this case, it's Yamamelech because. Tracer says in a few places, Yam HaMelech is because nobody travels there. So we're not worried that somebody's going to take...
Swimming and diving in...
A barrel's going to float on top. A barrel's going to float on top. So therefore we say, go to Yam HaMelech is not a problem there. Thinking about it further, but a ring doesn't float. A ring might sink in the ground, so they sink. So we're not worried. It's a barrel that's sealed that's definitely going to float. Okay, thinking about it further... That's it's the exact same principle as what Rav Nachman said before. Name of Rav. We need both. We thought avodah zarah. We're going to be lenient. Remember, the whole thing is Rabban. We're going to be lenient. There ain't lamatidin. There's no way that you can ever use avodah zarah. So then, what should he do? So we want to be lenient. That ring. Avol truma. Let's say you have 100 barrels and one of them is truma. You don't have to throw them out. Sell them to a kohen. Give them to a kohen. The Eshla Matidin, so why should we be lenient and say, let's assume that the barrel that fell down there, that fell, is the Trum and the rest, let's be lenient and be moderate. There's a remedy. When there's a remedy, why should we dismiss this particular law, suspend the law? That's what we would have thought. So you had to tell us, Rish Lakish is din by Truma. By Chavis, everybody can see that it's missing, that it's on the water there, so therefore nobody's going to make a mistake. Oh, I'm allowed to have all the barrels. No, they know, because one barrel is not there, it's on the water. But if one ring was thrown in and then people know that there's an avodah zarah ring here, then they see that everyone is using all the rings, they'll think, oh, they don't realize that one ring is missing or it's floating. What do you don't see it? It sinks. If you like the light, therefore you need both. Amar Rabba says, Rabba, loy hitir Reish Lakish was not mated ela chavis, the minkra nefilosa, only by chavis. You can see that there's a barrel missing. There's a big space, big gap, right? You have 100 barrels, suddenly one barrel is not there. You can see there's a barrel missing. And therefore people know that the only reason why we're using the rest of the barrels is because one barrel fell in or something. Ma'avol te'ena. In the case, let's say, of a te'ena fig, light, nobody notices it. Yeah. Rabbi Yosef disagrees. He says, afilu te'ena, even a fig. In other words, Rabba's trying to say that, and the same thing by a ring. Rashi's girsa is avol tabas. In our Gemara, we don't have avol tabas. All we have is te'ena. But Rashi's girsa is, but tabas also, he says he argues with Rab Nachman because it's not noticeable. Just like a fig, it's not noticeable. People might make a mistake. No, this is what we said before. We need both because they both agree. Now he's saying that maybe they're arguing. This is Rashi girsa, not our girsa. And Rabbi says, no, even te'ena, kinefilasa, kachaliyasa. He says that just like when it fell into the all those amutter, it's considered as if it's there. We're saying it's osir. Why are you saying it's osir? As if you can't have any of the figs, as if it's noticeable. If it's not noticeable, then it'll be bottled merayv. The reason why we answer all the figs is because it is noticeable. So if so too, when one of the figs are missing, it'll be noticeable. It works both ways. It says chavis shel truma. If you have a barrel, truma shel chavis, and fell into 100 barrels that are close. We just said before that it's a davar sheminyan and it's not bottled. What you do is you open one of them, and the moment you open one of them, it becomes bottle. And then what you do? But there's one of them is truma. So truma there's 100 barrels. There's every barrel there's 100th suffix 1 to 100 of truma. Therefore, is a dimur. You take off from the barrel like a possible mixture in, like you imagine 1 in 100, a ratio of 1. If there's 100 barrels. And one barrel is truma is a ratio of 1 to 100. So from each barrel, you say the mixture is like 1 to 100.
What's it? Something else?
It was mixed, a mixture. So kedei dimur, v'shois, and then you could drink the rest. I did forget to tell you that if I remember correctly, the Shach says that when we say, okay. Yosef Ravdimi sat there, Ravdimi sat there, and he said over this whole Gemara. Nachman says. It seems like you're telling people how to circumvent the law. Open all the barrels. you said a law that all the barrels are awesome, and then you say if you open the barrels, mutter, so people open every barrel and drink it. So what did you achieve? In fact, that's what you're going to do. You're going to drink it. So what did you achieve? So how do you ever find a case where you say it's not bottled? So the Gemara, Ella Ema say, Niftecha achas man. Not that you go ahead. You sound like you're saying go ahead and open. No. If it happened. Then noitle made the movie shows them. This is the remedy. Once the open is bottled, same thing like the ring. It fell in, not that you put it in. You have one barrel truma fell into 150. The niftechu meyamehan, and it happened by mistake. Somebody didn't know, and you opened or it opened by itself. Remember, machlek is if somebody did it, show you what happens. So somehow or another, all the barrels opened up. On its own, the crack, whatever, is noitel heimenu kedei dimur v'shoisa. So these 100, what you said before, it's a ratio of 1 to 150. So you take off 150 of each barrel, and v'shad isurin achivtechu, and the rest, because you would think, 100 barrels open up. So why can't I say probably the truma was with a rave? So I should be able to open the remaining 50 barrels because that's the miyat. 100 barrels were opened up. Probably one of those 100 was the truma. And if I should go ahead and open the 50, he said, no. You don't say the Isser is in the rest. Back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, the different cases of animals that were no good. And one of them was treif. What is treif? Said the Gemara. The rest, you don't know which animals are near, but it got mixed up. It got a problem. Treif, what's treif? Treif is the bottom part of the leg is missing. The visible treifus. Hey, Chadam, what are we talking about? If we know that, for example, part of the leg is missing, from the knee below, so you could see that it's treif, the knee below, above, or, different treifs that are visible to the naked eye. Easy delay, laser can go and take it out. What's the problem? And and if you don't see it, the animal treif in the clock. If it's an internal treifa, how do you know it's treif? Exactly. So what does it mean that treifa got mixed up? For 3 different answers. You have 2 kinds of, you see a puncture. There's a puncture of a thorn, there's a puncture of a wolf. A puncture of a thorn, we say that the thorn probably didn't go all the way into the parts of the lung, other parts, so therefore we say the animal is still kosher. However, if it's a zev with puts his sharp nails inside, we say that there's a strong possibility. Not only that, because the nail also has some kind of a poison, and it eats up, it burns away. And the animal comes treif, but we cannot tell the difference, what kind of hole it is. So it's like a suffy treif. And that's what we mean over here. And some animals maybe that include as treif, or some are zev, we don't know. The Shlaki says, going the other been a fuller. We're talking an animal fell off a roof. If an animal fell off a roof, the animal looks all right. We know that it fell off the roof. Now we don't know where the animal is. They're all mixed up. But we know an animal fell off the roof, and we know there's a thing called risukevarim. It could be all the limbs moved about, and it is treif. So the Gemara, there's a way of testing it. You let it see if it stands or if it walks. You wait 24 hours, or you see it can stand. If it can stand upright, then according to one opinion, we say that there's no problem. Or you wait 24 hours, and then you wait 24 hours, then you go ahead and shecht. So just to make sure that internally is all right. Why don't we just check straight away? Just check the animals, bring them all up, and then you'll see. So he says, you need, according to one opinion, you have to wait 24 hours before you can check internally. And the problem with these kabbanas, you have to bring some of the kabbanas straight away. You can't wait 24 hours. If it stands in one place, you wait 24 hours and then you check. If it walks, you can check straight away, and it needs bdika. So therefore, but now the animal got mixed up. You can't tell from the outside which animal it is. That's the problem. Rabbi Yemi says, going the adam of vlad treifa. He goes according to the opinion of who holds that the child of the offspring of a treifa is also considered treif. There's a machlekes, and he holds like that one, and therefore you look at the animal, you can't tell, and that's the problem. And it goes according to Rabbi Lezer. Now, why they all arguing? They all don't agree, Rabbi Yana, because they say made the yada. You can tell the difference with if it's whether a nail of a wolf or if it's a thorn. Hi, Moshe, hi, Ogel. One is elongated and one is circular. You're round. They hold the they hold like the view that says that if it can stand, you don't have to wait 4 hours, so there's no problem. You can tell if an animal fell off the roof, have all the animals standing and see if there's any animal that can't stand. That's it. If they're all standing, no problem. And they hold that if it walked, if you get all the animals to, so if it stood, you still need internal bdika. But they hold like the Tana that said, but if it walks, you don't need no bdika at all. So therefore, you don't know which one it is. And if there's no problem, what's the problem? It's not treif anymore. And Rabbi Yemi, but Rabbi Lezer, why the whole like Rabbi Yemi? Because they don't hold like Rabbi Lezer that says that the vlad of a treifa is forbidden. In tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem. Have a good day. Have a good day.
Thanks.